I'm in college. Like, why are we so towards the father? Why does he need to be there so much?
Wow, this is so interesting, and I just explained why.
So just looking at
masculinity is an embodiment of reality.
Answer my question for me. Do you think what kind of is there any time, and you're being very vulnerable, and I appreciate that, when you were growing up, and maybe not, where you said, I wish I had a dad around?
My mom says I did wish for that once at a wishing well, but like
oh my gosh, dude. Maybe I regret a little bit going so hard at her at the beginning of the video, but I mean, my statements were all truthful. However, what we must understand, despite the unfortunateness of some people's situations, and there are many young women who have been destroyed and are basically vessels for feminist, male-hating, resentful psychopathology, they still made choices along the way, even without fathers in their lives. Unless we're going to say that women don't have agency, which I'm not prepared to do, that they made choices through free will to invite in the resentment. Every person, and myself included, has had opportunities to invite in resentment rather than take on the incremental responsibility that an individual must voluntarily confront in order to embody reality. And so even in this circumstance, which has tragic elements, I would say that this girl is not a victim, because that is not the correct conceptualization of her or of society.
I think, I mean, I have, if my father was like, you're beautiful, that'd be cool. But like, if my mom was also like, you're beautiful.
Oh man.
I don't really see a difference between like my mom saying it and my father saying it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's. I don't see the world that way, because
she doesn't see the world that way either. This is the reason why women need masculine leadership, is because naturally, and especially when they're exploited by left-wing ideology, they're required to say the opposite of the truth in order to cope with reality, which they haven't been able to embody or accept, because masculinity is construed by postmodern neo-Marxism as oppressive, untenable, patriarchal. And when I say patriarchal, I'm referencing the fact that the leftist ideology says that that means it is inherently corrupt. A central problem young women have, I see this everywhere, is that they can't tell the difference between masculine competence and manifestations of tyrannical corruption. There's no way to distinguish between those things, especially if you don't have a father in your life that has been able to embody that to any degree at all.
So in order to go to jail for the war on drugs, you have to be dealing drugs, right? Or you have to be caught with drugs. So if you don't
which is one of like the main jobs that you can have in like poverty.
You're making excuses for criminals.
Right.
Yeah.
And what an insult.
Oh my gosh. And then she admits it. Freudian right there.
Difference in worldview. You're making excuses for criminals.
Yeah.
And then she laughs. Psychopathically. I'm making excuses for those who break society because I'm empathetic. It's so perverse. I want to make the world better by destroying it. I want to save people and call myself a good person while backing the destruction of society. At least I'm a compassionate, Oedipal mother.
Like Nicki Minaj, Cardi B. Do you think that they're like empowering people to be great?
Well, I do think Cardi B and Nicki Minaj are empowering, but when you talk about like
worshipping degeneracy.
Like,
wow.
Black, like, let's go, like, Kendrick or whatever, like.
Disgusting.
They're talking about their life experiences, and
this is what happens, guys. A girl without a father literally will say that Cardi B's empowering. A woman who embodies degeneracy, loudly, gleefully promotes it, celebrates her incompetence and degeneracy. A woman who robbed men.
Saying, this is what happened to me.
Theft. There's an interesting denial of property in this degenerately feminine, psychopathic worldview. There's no such thing as property. I think because property is a direct reference to the existence of category. It's a direct reference to right and wrong if you were to fail to recognize that category of property. Okay, guys, I'm going to analyze this Charlie Kirk video. I'm not sure what to expect. We will experience it together. The thumbnail is of a disheveled woman who clearly is, experiencing some issues. But what those issues are, the details of the analysis, I'm not exactly sure what to expect here.
Hello.
Hi. I
want to say Charlie Kirk is a hero for doing this. My cousin just texted me. He's actually going to the U of O campus very soon, which should be incredible because there's a lot of, obviously Oregon, there's a lot of cognitively ravaged, destroyed liberals there who are going to have their echo chamber broached.
Well, first question, why can't marriage be allowed with two men or two women? That question got me.
Yeah, so I mean,
Okay, this is very interesting. So, first of all, what's interesting here, and you saw this in the last video of a truly discombobulated woman confronting Charlie Kirk, her disheveled state, both physically and mentally, is juxtaposed by everyone around her. And yet she clearly thinks she holds some sort of moral superiority to act as if she should be the one questioning Charlie Kirk and the morality and sanity of everyone around her when she's visibly, physically, much less put together, which references the narcissism that is ideologically induced by the left.
Loud and what it is are two different things. So again, just strictly from what marriage has always been is the idea of two separate parts coming in a union to be able to have, hopefully, a lifelong partnership.
Right, because femininity and masculinity are representations of objective reality that are asymmetrical but come together to create something that is whole and, again, representative of reality. As masculinity has strengths and weaknesses that femininity does not have, and femininity has strengths and weaknesses that masculinity does not have. So you see that in the warfare that the left is conducting with reality and truth, which is abundantly clear, especially now a month before the election, almost every single thing the left says is designed to invert truth. There's a really interesting rage and resentment component there that comes as a result of them feeling judged for varying levels of inadequacy. But the question of why should men and women be viewed differently is equivalent to saying why should reality have to exist instead of my ideology?
To raise kids, adopt kids, or have kids, and to become better versions of themselves. It is the attraction of opposites. And so if you want to redefine marriage, that's fine, that's your contention, but I take a classical view of marriage.
Based on, like, what is that based on what?
Exactly, based on what? Because the left denies the existence of reality. So you see delusion here. And again, the narcissism is abundantly clear given that she thinks she should be able to ask the question of why should reality have to apply to me without her looking insane? In her mind, he should look insane for saying men and women exist and are representations of reality. To the left, nothing can be a representation of reality, though, because reality has objective parameters that adhere to truth itself rather than their ideology, truth being objective and therefore outside their ideology. Leftism and postmodern Marxism go out of their way to claim incessantly at every level of analysis that any form of objectivism is oppression and corruption, and somehow merely derivative of a social construct put in place by the patriarchy or white supremacy, take your pick of incoherent claim. Something interesting here, though, is notice how the disheveled, incompetent woman is saying something like defend marriage, which you could talk about, as Jordan Peterson says, for literally hours at a high level resolution and still just barely be getting started. And that's her question rather than saying, why does my ideology deny reality?
The Bible?
The natural law.
Is that the Bible?
Well, natural law is separate than the Bible, but it's harmonic with the Bible.
She's so, yeah, oh my gosh, dude. Charlie's doing such a good job here, but the left causes people to be so enormously wrecked. Like, what type of question is that? As if just the Bible is even within her ability to understand. To me, this reeks of low IQ, but the left fosters this deliberately because they're mentally unserious. Any person that would say, so is that attributable to just the Bible, doesn't know what any of those words in that sentence means and are clearly confessing their incompetence.
Well, that's correct.
Okay.
Because what would you say? What is?
Charlie goes ahead and says, yes, the Bible is encompassing of everything. So yes, you just said that reality has a relationship with everything. But again, her incompetence is manifold.
What is the purpose of marriage?
Marriage is like, I love you, you love me, let's
Got it. So
let's get together.
Can a 25-year-old marry an 8-year-old?
No.
Why?
Because that 8-year-old is not ready. Like, they
Got it. So that's
are not.
It's very interesting to see him induce the necessity for engaging in objective parameters in a person who's not capable of doing so. And when I say capable, I'm not necessarily talking about her genetic ability. I'm talking about what ideologically has been demanded of her, given that postmodern neo-Marxism, which has destroyed her and caused her to present this way, has also said that engaging in any form of objectivism is synonymous with being oppressed and being a bad person, as you no longer are able to harvest the counterfeit virtue that comes from the ideology that demonizes objectivism.
Not at all.
So then let's build out your definition more then. Mm-hmm. Love each other, but also what? What is the purpose? What is the destination of marriage?
We are two adults. We love each other.
Fair enough. Okay, we love each other. End of story.
Well, let's give me another thing and maybe I'll add to it.
Okay, but is that it?
Again, that same degenerate narcissism. Give me another thing and I'll add to it. Why don't you do the thinking and you add to it, given that you're asking the question and you're demonstrating incompetence? Leftists don't think that they're even demonstrating incompetence because they don't believe in the I talked about this yesterday, but they don't believe in the category of better and worse, more competent, less competent. They're actually at war with category itself. This is what I mean when I say they are at war with reality. When I say they're at war with reality, you can extrapolate this to varying levels of depth, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. Ultimately, what you'll find, though, is that this is a manifestation of narcissism.
Just, is it about union, partnership, friendship?
I think it's just like, let's get our taxes good, like, let's just get married. Like, I don't think there needs to be some big...
Everyone around her is laughing at her. She said that with a straight face, admitting that the left destroyed her. What people need to understand, and this is a 21st century realization, is that the left is doing warfare with reality. It's causing especially young women to think that everything is socially constructed, that there are no right and wrong answers, because right and wrong answers reflect masculine parameters. They reflect right and wrong, references to objective reality that would judge you as an individual. But if your ideology says there's no such thing as an individual, there's no such thing as right and wrong, then you clearly have an incentive to say everything is socially constructed. And this is also why proclivity to abide in left-wing authoritarianism, to abide in leftism, is made in the image of a feminine personality. That's what you're seeing here. Delusion.
Really crazy reason.
I'm not attacking you. I think marriage is holy. And by holy, I don't just mean in a religious sense. Holy means separate.
He's talking about such depth of objective realizations from reality, being morality, that he's speaking a different language to this destroyed creature. And I'm not trying to attack her personally. I'm describing what the left has created. Because it's an abomination. An assault on intellectual seriousness, an assault on beauty, an assault on truth. The castration of a person's mind, in this case a young woman's mind, to reflect any level of reality and be narcissistic while embodying only narcissism and deformity.
Meaning it should be elevated, it should be celebrated. It's something that is so above the rest, and you just think it's like a tax advantage, and it's fine, because actually most Americans agree with you.
Yeah.
I think marriage is something where we should drop everything, like, wow, two separate parts have just made a lifelong covenant with one another to learn about the other and to grow with each other, and it's difficult.
I mean, I'm Jewish, and like in Judaism there's the
this girl is not representative of normal Jewish girls, I will say that. Even in California, I know Jewish girls that, I mean, a lot of them have been destroyed by the woke ideology, but those with fathers in their lives have been spared.
Or like there's like when you get married, the religious marriage, and then there's the government marriage. Like you have to get married twice, basically. So I think what you're talking about is probably the religious marriage, like with a priest. I'm talking about governmental marriage.
I'm even talking about government. I'm just saying traditionally our governmental marriage, again, I'm in the vast minority of opinion in the country, that it's a man and a woman coming together in something sacred.
I don't believe that most Americans actually would disagree with Charlie. I think most of them would agree that marriage is sacred and that it is reflective of some sort of higher order good that is intrinsically good. Cross-culturally, in the various cultures within the United States, marriage is celebrated and revered as a higher level of existence. And basically every environment besides college campuses where young people are taught to hate the world. They may not identify with the religious tenor that Charlie's talking about here, but that it doesn't change the fact that he's correct.
I would say that's just a Christian marriage.
It's not necessarily Christian. In Judaism, in traditional rabbinical Judaism, Orthodox, homosexual marriage is not recognized.
That is true.
So it's not Christian. In Islam, homosexual marriage is not recognized.
Okay.
So it's not just Christian.
And he's actually, what he just said there encompasses like 5 billion people, just to be clear. So that is not the minority by any stretch of the imagination.
So it's Abrahamic.
Abrahamic.
All right, we agree.
Why?
Appreciate that, Charlie.
Why do we care if there's no father? I grew up
That's a joke.
without a father. I feel like I'm doing fine. I'm doing great.
Oh, okay. So if it sounds like I'm predicting the future here, it's because I am. I'm able to tell archetypally what's going on a deep level. When I said that fathers are the best defense for this ravenous low IQ attack on the feminine psyche, it's because I know that to be the case. Again, masculinity is an embodied apparatus for reality itself. This is the reason why women are attracted to men who have their shit together, because what the men are saying is, look, I've mastered reality to a degree which, compared to other men on a statistical continuum, have not been able to compete with me. And so, look, I stand out. It's the reason why when a guy that is even 10%, you know what's interesting? If you have a guy that is even 10% more in shape than the average man around him, he looks like a Roman titan or like a Greek hero. And he's only really proving that he's 10% more in shape. And if you get a man that's 10% more in shape than that guy, then all of a sudden he looks like Hercules himself. And women of all ages immediately look at that guy and it's like, oh, wow, that guy really is doing something different than all these other men. The same thing is true of competing in business. The same thing is true of intellectual ability in, let's say, an academic setting. A lot of girls find intellectuals attractive. It's because masculinity in its competence, and men are required to seek competence through competition. Masculinity embodies reality itself. And so through relationship with her father, a daughter can interface with reality and not be led astray by dogmatic, anti-reality, nihilistic, psychopathic, broken ideology such as postmodern neo-Marxism.
I'm in college. Why are we so towards the father? Why does he need to be there so much?
Wow, this is so interesting, and I just explained why.
So just looking at
masculinity is an embodiment of reality.
Answer my question for me. Do you think what kind of is there any time, and you're being very vulnerable, and I appreciate that, when you were growing up, and maybe not, where you said, "I wish I had a dad around"?
My mom says I did wish for that once at a wishing well, but like
oh my gosh, dude. Maybe I regret a little bit going so hard at her at the beginning of the video, but I mean, my statements were all truthful. However, what we must understand, despite the unfortunateness of some people's situations, and there are many young women who have been destroyed and are basically vessels for feminist, male-hating, resentful psychopathology, they still made choices along the way, even without fathers in their lives. Unless we're going to say that women don't have agency, which I'm not prepared to do, that they made choices through free will to invite in the resentment. Every person, and myself included, has had opportunities to invite in resentment rather than take on the incremental responsibility that an individual must voluntarily confront in order to embody reality. And so even in this circumstance, which has tragic elements, I would say that this girl is not a victim, because that is not the correct conceptualization of her or of society.
Great. She supported me, provided me.
Sure. No, I'm not. There's not a knock on.
Right. Why isn't femininity enough?
Single moms.
Right.
But was there ever a time maybe where a more masculine figure would have been helpful?
I can't really.
She's going to say no, because that would be saying that, in a very perverse sense, masculinity is oppressive. Masculinity is required, and the fact that it judges makes her too vulnerable to admit the truth, or something like that.
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
Like, what? Can you give me an example of when a masculine figure would be helpful in my life?
When a boyfriend might have broke up with you, and you didn't want to talk to your mom because she just didn't get it, and you wanted a strong, stable man to say you're beautiful.
I think, I mean, I have, if my father was like, you're beautiful, that'd be cool. But like, if my mom was also like, you're beautiful.
Oh man.
I don't really see a difference between like my mom saying it and my father saying it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's. I don't see the world that way, because
she doesn't see the world that way either. This is the reason why women need masculine leadership, is because naturally, and especially when they're exploited by left-wing ideology, they're required to say the opposite of the truth in order to cope with reality, which they haven't been able to embody or accept, because masculinity is construed by postmodern neo-Marxism as oppressive, untenable, patriarchal. And when I say patriarchal, I'm referencing the fact that the leftist ideology says that means it is inherently corrupt. A central problem young women have, I see this everywhere, is that they can't tell the difference between masculine competence and manifestations of tyrannical corruption. There's no way to distinguish between those things, especially if you don't have a father in your life that has been able to embody that to any degree at all.
There's being a father to a daughter, there's a very unique bond between a father and a daughter, where it's you fall in love again, but not romantic love. You fall in a different type of Greek love, which is called storge, which is a father-daughter love, where you have such affection for this incredible being, and your task is to shepherd that vulnerable, innocent girl through life.
Right, so he's referencing the competent, just, protective aspects of masculinity. And for a girl that doesn't have a masculine role model in her life, and a lot of girls fit this criteria. I have a video coming out on that soon, actually, of a prominent YouTuber girl who has a completely warped perception of men as a result of having no masculine influence in her life. They know that what he's saying is true, but they can't admit it, because it's not exactly that it's too much to accept, but it shatters the ideology which has granted them coping mechanisms and counterfeit status and virtue.
All the way up until the marriage aisle, to kind of connect the two topics together, right?
Wow.
Where then you hand it off to another man. A vulnerable, innocent girl through life, all the way up until the marriage aisle, to kind of connect the two topics together, right?
Wow.
Where then you...
Right. And so there it is. She can't tell the difference because she thinks, he's giving her away. She can't tell the difference again between tyrannical masculine corruption and benevolent just competence. Two totally different sides of what can really only both be loosely considered with masculinity. True masculinity is the former.
You hand it off to another man.
The broken masculinity I described is the corrupt uncle, the rival to the king. It's like from the movie, the one with the lines, Lion King, the corrupt Uncle Scarge, or whatever his name is. He's the counterfeit masculinity archetype in the story.
Because women are worthy of protection.
So you're saying, like, there has to be a man in the woman's life.
Not
the
has
woman
to.
can't be,
Not-
like, alone.
No.
Has to, rather than should be. The distinction is one that moral relativists can't grasp.
There are exceptions, but it is a beautiful ideal. And when that ideal falls apart, now let's talk about the technical side.
The left disputes the notion of the ideal most fundamentally because they don't believe in an individual. And if you are an individual, you can only orient yourself with aiming at an ideal. The left aims at things, but they don't consider it ideals. In fact, they really construct the points that they aim at through resentment and nihilism.
In the black community, when fathers are no longer around, crime goes up, poverty goes up. Because you'll understand this less, and a man in the audience who grew up without a father will totally get this. If it's just a mom in the house, the dad should come in and discipline the 14-year-old for acting like a brat.
Absolutely. But the problem is that in the African-American community, a lot of times the first masculine authority figure they meet is a police officer. And that just doesn't go well for them, right? Because then they act like a juvenile, feminine person that can't cope with order.
The dad comes in and he says, stop doing this. You need to be able to outrank the 14-year-old brat with another masculine figure.
Correct.
But don't you think that, like, there's a reason that a lot of the black community isn't...
And every young guy with a father knows what he's talking about.
Doesn't have a father, and it's because of systemic racism. It's because, like, black men are more likely to
it's so crazy how she just attributed a concept she doesn't even understand to racism.
be in prison.
Oh, yeah, so why do people go to prison?
For, like, a lot of the time, it's because they're in poverty and they have no other way to get...
No. A lot of people grow up in poverty, but through their choices, decide to be so excellent you can't imagine it. Jay Waller's a perfect example of that. Guy grew up in poverty, made all the right choices, struggled. Ben Mull, another example, didn't have a father, horrible mother, grew up in poverty. Now he's a beacon of hope for a lot of people that grow up in poverty, and is worth $500 million.
Okay, so they commit crimes.
Because
Yeah, but so wait, so wait.
Why do they
So wait, if you're
commit crimes?
So in poverty, we should give excuses for...
So this might seem like a different topic, guys, but it actually isn't, because what she's manifesting here is her inability to accept enforcing objective parameters. She is upset that she has to admit that people go to jail because of their decisions in a system that is objective when their decisions are incoherent and therefore not compatible with the objective landscape, which is the exact same concept I was describing before. So the topic of masculinity and the topic of people going to jail through decisions that they make are the same topic.
Committing crime?
Yes, because if they have no...
Like murder?
This is the reason why you hear women say things like, we don't need an army, we don't need borders, we don't need police. Because this is their conceptualization of reality. The ideology of the left does warfare with masculinity on every level of the mental framework.
I did not say murder. I said, like... I'm saying, like...
And the fact that you would even try to distinguish between worse or more heinous and less heinous crimes demonstrates that she's not approaching this seriously, because the question should just be if you are violating objective reality, in this case, morality.
If someone is stealing something because they have no money and there's no jobs...
That's so interesting. So you think most...
Yeah, okay, so there it is. Perfect. Totally crazy. Theft is the fault of the people who have nice things. A statement told to me by an old woman in my family who has been ravaged by the left-wing ideology. Shout out to you, you know who you are. Because admitting that there is a right and a wrong is too great a bear for those who despise order and reality itself. These are the same type of people that get upset when Target or Walmart has to lock up the deodorant and toothpaste instead of saying, why does that have to take place? They get upset with the company than they are with the people who are stealing things. It is actual warfare with masculinity, warfare with reality, warfare with objective parameters. You see how that is totally disconnected with reality to say that it's the fault of the corporation for locking up products so that they don't get stolen rather than the people who steal things? It's a doubling down on insanity, which is the reason why the left preys on feminine psyches.
Crimes are crimes of necessity in the black community.
I'm not saying most.
So like gangbanging is like a crime of necessity?
That I literally never said that. I'm saying,
but
like,
you're making an argument of crimes of necessity. Like they're so hungry they can't handle it.
Right. They have to steal the deodorant.
Talking about like crime that has
the Louis Vuitton necessity
to do with like getting food, getting stuff that you need to live.
Right, but we have food stamps.
And keep in mind, guys, that if you don't even understand anything that I'm talking about here because you're on the left, at least recognize the fact that she doesn't have a father and is saying these things.
For anyone that needs it. So that doesn't exist. We have subsidized housing for anyone that needs it, so that doesn't exist. We have free healthcare for any poor person that wants it, called Medicaid, that doesn't exist. We also have welfare, cash, for anyone that wants it, so that doesn't exist. So what is it they're missing that they need to go, sorry about that.
Well, the food, like a lot of food stamps might not cover all of what they need. And also housing is like, there's not
all of what they need. What they need is voluntary adoption of responsibility so that they can face objective reality. But of course, that violates the Oedipal mother complex, which is really at the core of this degenerate femininity. Oh, they can't face the world because the world is too dangerous. Better to stay here, suck on mother's teat and the government, archetypally speaking. Or literally speaking, if you're watching Game of Thrones, that was a great archetype that they showed there with the mother of the Vale, if you guys know what I'm talking about. She wouldn't send her army to help Ned Stark because it's better to remain on the top of the mountain, retreated away from all the problems, thinking that they'll never come to you. No, in fact, you have to offer your children to the world. You have to offer yourself to the world like Mary presenting her son Jesus to the world so that he can transcend it. It's the reason why it's one of the most captivating images ever created.
There's not unlimited housing. A lot of people who are unhoused have to like go to shelters and then they get kicked out of
Dude, in California, we have tens of thousands of homeless people. These are not people who, as Elon said, have gotten behind on their mortgage a little bit. They are drug-addicted zombies who don't know where they are and can't even... Their brains have been shattered. This is completely incoherent.
Shelters because there's a mandatory stay limit. So it's not like you just get a house.
It's not a stuff thing, though, right? It's like, if you need stuff, there's also tons of charities out there that can provide assistance. Churches, you will not go hungry in this country. You will not starve in this country.
Yes, you will. There's like...
Wrong. You don't. It simply doesn't happen.
We have an obesity problem.
Street?
We have an obesity problem.
Yeah, we literally have an excessive calorie issue.
Problem in this country.
What are you talking about?
In State Street, if any one of those people went to the local Episcopalian church or Methodist church, they will get fed. I guarantee it. If they go to a local food shelter, they will get fed.
Okay, but I'm talking... Okay, housing.
For housing. If we have Section 8 subsidized housing in this country, right? If you want to have a roof over your head...
Charlie's doing such a great job.
You can have a roof over your head.
With like thousands of rules and you can't do it.
Yes, of course, yes. I mean, it's not ideal.
Oh my gosh, rules have to apply to you when you get free stuff like housing? That's literally oppression. You see the degenerate psychopathology of the feminine personality.
But the point is this, so let's just go back
the broken feminine personality.
to the crime and necessity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why do people commit crimes?
I'm not saying why...
Bad choices. She can't say it because that would be admitting that objective reality judges her. Impossible. That would be shattering, blowing out all the pillars for her faulty, well, it would be blowing out the pillars of her faulty presuppositions, which are the pillars of her broken ideology. It would all come crumbling down and disintegrate if she were to accept even the simplest statement based on logic, reason, and rationality, because those things reference objective reality rather than her ideology.
I'm not saying why all people commit crimes. I'm saying there are people who commit crimes because they have no other choice.
Got it. So why is it that other people that are as poor as they are in separate racial groups don't commit crimes at the same rates?
She just can't think, statistically on a distribution. It's only anecdotal for her.
Example, blacks are 13% of the population and they commit over 50% of the crimes. Why is that?
59% of the murder.
Black people, I would say, not blacks.
Okay, it's not, I could say white, so you wouldn't care. But so black Americans are 13% of the population and commit anywhere between 50 to 56% of murders, crimes, carjackings. Why is that?
Well, what percentage of the white population is living in the same level of poverty?
Got it. So there's twice as many white Americans in poverty as black Americans. Not the same percentage.
Oh my gosh, statistics are oppression. How dare you answer me that way?
But still, if you look at white Americans in poverty, they commit
great job, Charlie.
Far less crimes than black Americans in poverty. Why is that?
Maybe it's because
it's the father.
When you're in a store,
it's very ironic considering she doesn't have a father and she's acting this way.
Like, they follow black people and they don't follow white people.
What about murder? You're being followed in a store and you commit more murders?
It doesn't have to make sense to them because they reject reality on its face.
Yeah.
It's too oppressive.
So the idea of systemic is that it's within our laws. Mm-hmm. There are some black Americans here listening. What can you as a white American do that the black American cannot do?
Let's see. I could go into a store.
Dude, it's crazy. It's basically the epitome of privilege that humanity has labored for thousands of years to create so that she can, be overweight, literally in excess of calories. I'm not saying dramatically overweight, but she is overweight. And look like she just walked out of a Starbucks while having parents that are worth like $5 million, right? Grew up in a suburb. My life is so hard. I have to be a champion of those which I deem to be victims Think of how perverse it is.
And not get followed. The police could.
What does she even know about any of that, dude? Nothing.
Not track me down on, like, when I'm driving. I'm not probably.
Are these fairy tales that white liberal women tell themselves? Oh my gosh, that black man that I just saw pass me, you know, he's probably being followed like everywhere.
I'm less.
They sound like what they label as conspiracy theories when they're like, yeah, Alex Jones says that he's being spied on constantly, but you know, they're like, black people are being followed everywhere by police. Dude, it's crazy.
It's likely to get shot and killed while I'm driving.
While you're driving? Oh man. Oh gosh.
There's a lot of things that I can do.
Okay, so just be clear. So if you walk into a local CVS here, how would you guys be treated differently?
Well, they would probably say hello, and they would probably like just.
It's so unidimensional. They only insist that there's one variable, which is power disparities between people, and of course the identity of the person, which they define based on either gender or race. And there's a couple others, but gender or race probably make up for 80% of the identity, which grants counterfeit virtue in Marxism. It's utterly broken. It's unidimensional, but they aren't able to realize that because they've declared warfare on the ability to think.
Let me in and not follow me, and then.
So these are a lot of probablys. I don't believe you, but I'm talking about laws, right? So what in the legal code of America can you as a white individual do that the black individual can't? Because systemic means it's in our code, right? It's for example, like Jim Crow, totally get it.
It's very interesting that the people who wish to consider themselves victims don't want to engage in the objective, and there it is again, masculine frameworks that actually guarantee the fact that they're not victims and that they can be treated equally, that they are equal in fact, and they would rather be victims, therefore adhering to the degenerately feminine Oedipal mother archetype.
What is systemically your advantage?
Maybe
she is literally looking to find ways that she's a victim rather than engage with reality.
Housing codes, because I know redlining isn't a thing anymore, but there is
this thing from the past. It's not a thing. Anyway,
isn't there people who are white are more likely to be given loans because of
Dude,
they have.
All of this is so. I'm gonna be honest. It's beneath us. It's beneath our side of the internet, our side of the culture, which is used to engaging with ideas. This is like we're talking to a child who's trying to be a victim or something. This is not serious. This is not actual intellectual discourse or debate. This is trying to unradicalize someone who is dedicated to being a victim in every way they can think of, even hypothetically. And the reason she wants there to be victims that aren't even that aren't her, that don't look like her, is so that she can engage in a hierarchy of virtue where she can bow at certain altars and get counterfeit virtue in return.
Less
because she's not a hero, but she wants to be one, obviously.
I don't know. That's just it's back from redlining. It's a lot of the same stuff.
So, I don't buy into any of that.
Right.
Loans are now given favorably to black Americans in certain cities over white Americans.
Okay, but
because of DEI and because of affirmative action, there's actually a preference given. But so let's go back to fathers, right?
Okay, let's go back to fathers.
So something happened to black America since 1965. So in 1965,
you mean the war on drugs?
Right. Well, so if that's your contention, that's fine. So in order to go to jail for the war on drugs, you have to be dealing drugs, right? Or you have to be caught with drugs. So if you don't
which is one of the main jobs that you can have in a poverty-stricken. If there's no jobs, you're
drug dealer is not a job because it's illegal, highly illegal.
You're going to do drugs. I mean, you're going to trade drugs because.
Oh my gosh, these are again the utterances of a girl without a father. Drug dealer is a job. Oh man,
that's the only option you have.
It's such a difference in worldview. You're making excuses for criminals.
Right.
Yeah.
And what an insult.
Oh my gosh. And then she admits it. Freudian right there.
Difference in worldview. You're making excuses for criminals.
Yeah.
And then she laughs psychopathically. I'm making excuses for those who break society because I'm empathetic. It's so perverse. I want to make the world better by destroying it. I want to save people and call myself a good person, while backing the destruction of society. At least I'm a compassionate Oedipal mother.
An insult to poor immigrants that came to this country that didn't commit crimes and work 2 or 3 jobs.
They're engaging in objective frameworks. They're oppressors. That's how perverse they are. That's actually what they think, but they won't say it because that would be victimizing people, which invalidates their destroyed, inverted hierarchy.
Worked themselves out of poverty and didn't decide to go deal coke.
Well, my father is a white immigrant from Poland, and he committed crimes, and he's fine now. So
did he go to jail?
Yeah, he did.
I thought there was systemic racism. I thought that doesn't happen very much.
I never said white people don't go to jail. I said they go more, and you're saying that white immigrants are fine and they don't.
No,
I'm
it's
saying
far
that they
less
do.
actually. I'm glad he went to jail. If he committed a crime. I think it's terrible.
Yeah.
So,
well,
but at the core of it, we have a difference in worldview, right? My worldview is
okay, so her father made bad choices, and as a result, this happened.
not sympathetic to people that steal,
And her daughter's now making excuses for people who make bad choices.
that loot, and murder.
It's a broken cycle. You can see why, yeah.
Because that's a values problem. And I don't like making excuses for people that do things that are obviously destructive. Secondly, we have a problem.
I don't like backing the destruction of civilization, unlike you, which you just admitted to and then laughed at, as if it was nothing. Crazy. It's crazy.
in Black America. The biggest problem is not racism, it's the lack of dads. If dads are around, kids flourish. And you know who agreed with me? Barack Obama. Barack Obama used to make this a central piece of his campaign. He came to this campus back in 2012, drew like a 100,000 person crowd, and talked about how we need to rebuild the black family and put dads back. Why doesn't the Democrat Party talk about that anymore?
They don't want society to be fixed. They'd rather have their dichotomy of victimhood and counterfeit virtue.
I'm fine with having fathers. I'm not against
Oh, you actually are. And we saw that at the beginning of this video.
having black dads.
For sure. I'm saying, but don't we agree? Has anyone heard that mentioned on the national scale in the last 10 years?
No, in fact, we've heard the opposite message of demonizing masculinity at every single possible turn, to the point where we literally have to have, like, created heroes like Andrew Tate, to the point where we're just declaring war on the people who declare war on masculinity. That's what it's gotten to, because it's become so ferocious.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard about,
Probably
like...
not.
Yeah, and
Because
why
there's
is that?
bigger issues.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, there's not bigger issues, but that's very psychopathic for her to say.
See, that's the issue, is that this is what makes us different. As a conservative, I focus on, if you have family breakdown, don't worry about climate change, don't worry about systemic racism. All that stuff is like these crazy...
Right, and they're actually insane enough to think, no, I can't get out of bed and feed myself, but I should restructure the global economic system.
What do you think create family problems? Systemic racism creates family problems.
It's so broken, it's so unidimensional, it's so incompetent, it's so low IQ.
If you take away black people from their families, then they're going to have broken...
It's so perverse. Rather than telling black fathers not to commit crime so they don't get taken away from their families, to then say order, like the structure of society is at fault for enforcing consequences on their poor choices. It's the same thing as the women saying, why is Target locking up the deodorant rather than blaming the criminals instead? It's warfare on reality. The left declares war on reality.
That's interesting. How are you taking them away? Aren't they leaving? They're not staying with the women they're impregnating. So, for example, they
are committing crimes when they go to jail because you choose to commit crimes.
13% of the population is black. Not every single person ends up in jail, obviously. And yet there's huge child abandonment because there's a cultural expectation that is different in black. Get Thomas Sowell and Shelby Steele that have done amazing analysis on this. It's that...
Charlie, they don't engage in analysis. They don't engage in intelligence. In fact, they demonize those things as oppression. If they were to read those books, they would say that this, genius literary work is actually the construct of the patriarchy, which says that I should take on responsibility. They admit that they are mentally capped at a certain level when they say these incoherent univariable statements that are absurd and disconnected from reality.
In black culture, that is not considered to be a stigma. In white upper middle class culture, for those of you that grew up in Waukesha or Liberty...
Charlie continues to make intelligent points. Let's see how this ends.
Like Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, do you think that they're like empowering people to be great?
Well, I do think Cardi B and Nicki Minaj are empowering, but when you talk about like...
Worshipping degeneracy.
Like...
Wow.
Black... let's go like Kendrick or whatever, like...
Disgusting.
They're talking about their life experiences, and
this is what happens, guys. A girl without a father literally will say that Cardi B's empowering. A woman who embodies degeneracy, loudly, gleefully promotes it, celebrates her incompetence and degeneracy. A woman who robbed men.
Saying, this is what happened to me.
Theft. There's an interesting denial of property in this degenerately feminine, psychopathic worldview. There's no such thing as property, I think, because property is a direct reference to the existence of category. It's a direct reference to right and wrong if you were to fail to recognize that category of property. Very interestingly feminine and degenerately psychopathic. People should realize that we don't have to compromise with these people. They're literally wrong and we are literally right. We shouldn't be surprised that the culmination of this is her saying Cardi B is a good role model.
Or a lot of people can relate
Shouldn't
to.
ideally your culture try to elevate and try to challenge the individual to virtue and goodness.
If you were to just look at this, you would conclude that Western civilization is done. It's kaput. But there are young people like me who are fighting against this. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you are in your 20s and happen to be one of the few people that are awake to what's going on, awake to this degeneracy, definitely leave a comment down below. I want to hear from you. It's the fault of patriarchal men for enforcing laws on criminals.
The entire world, they're saying, this is what I have been through.
Like sleeping with a lot of women.
Yeah.
Or like gang violence and, you know.
I mean, if that's what, like, a lot of people have been through gang violence because that's what's happening in their neighborhoods.
The left is insane.
They feel like that's the only option. And you don't see any jobs. This is how your family was raising you. What other option do you have? And once you're in it,
what other option do you have but to commit crime and gang violence and sleep with a lot of women, right?
Really hard to get out.
So got it. You talk about systemic racism.
There is no such thing as accountability to the degenerate female psyche for the reason that accountability requires you to embody reality, recognize it, and then act in the light of the fact that objective reality exists. That is all untenable to the broken, degenerate, psychopathic female personality.
And that being a major driver of...
This is a sickness. This is a mental illness. This is quite literally a illness being pervaded throughout the psyches of women, rotting them from the inside, destroying them, ruining their lives.
You know, Black America's failure to launch, if you will. We subsidize single motherhood in this country. So if you stay single as a single mother, you get money. At least agree that if the nuclear family in Black America was stronger and tighter knit, that would be a good thing.
Even the question of, it's crazy, even the question of, is this clearly good thing good? She's hesitant to answer because she can't admit that good as a category exists. This is how psychopathic and destructive the left is.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, yeah. I think if...
You can't even say yes.
But I think if the father's abusive, I would not want him there. So I think it really
abusive masculinity is indistinguishable from competent masculinity to the broken female psychopathic mind.
Depends on like what family you're talking about. I don't think you can generalize.
What percentage of fathers do you think are abusive?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I would say it's probably small, right?
Not.
She's no conceptualization of that at all. Only ideological fever dreams.
Like, I don't know. I have no idea. I have not done research on what percentage of fathers
but generally abusive. It's good when mom and dad stays around and is raising the kid.
I would say if they are both healthy parents and they are both ready to have a child, it's great. My father, not ready to have a child, do not want him
yeah, that's obvious.
Just one last question on role models. Let's say there's a black kid right now. Would you rather have that black kid have a role model be Kendrick Lamar or Clarence Thomas?
Kendrick, obviously.
Oh my God.
So not.
Oh my God. Oh my God. The broken open war on category, reality, and truth is waged in the name of degenerate female psychopathology.
Not the black American on the United States Supreme Court.
No, he's trying to ban interracial marriage. He's trying to like do all.
Wow, no, he's in an interracial marriage.
He literally like.
He's married to a white woman.
Yeah, I know the Roe v. Wade thing goes against.
He's trying to ban his own marriage.
Yes.
I thought I've heard
I'm sorry
everything.
to break it to you.
So we agree that there should be better role models, maybe.
When have I ever said that there should not be? I'm agreeing with you that there should be fathers if they are right for that. We're agreeing.
And last question, you're voting for Kamala, I'm guessing?
How can you tell? Yeah.
Okay, what's her greatest accomplishment?
Probably capping capping the insulin at $35.
She did that. Yeah.
We're not equal to these people. They're not on our level. They are broken. They are enemies with civilization. And it will take a titanic effort to save these people from the resentment of Cain.